Today, we're talking about one of my favorite plant tools that can totally transform the way your Monstera grows, and that's moss poles. Now, if you're new to plant care or you're just curious about why people are absolutely raving about moss poles, you're in the right place. I'll walk you through why you might want to add a moss pole to your Monstera, the benefits it brings, how to set one up, and some easy tips to keep your plant thriving. Why moss poles matter for Monsteras. Let's start with why moss poles are such a big deal for Monsteras. If you didn't know, Monsteras are natural climbers. They grow up tall trees in the wild and they use their roots to latch on and grow upwards. When you give your Monstera a moss pole, you're giving it a way to climb, just like it would in nature. This helps it grow bigger, stronger, and with those beautiful splits and holes that we refer to as fenestrations. And we all love those. Now, let's dive into the benefits of moss poles. First off, moss poles encourage vertical growth, which means your Monstera will take up less space while looking fuller and healthier. If you've ever seen a Monstera with huge, dramatic leaves, there's a good chance it had something to climb on. Plus, the moss itself holds moisture, which creates a little bit of a humid environment that these tropical plants absolutely love. All this means a healthier, happier plant with minimal effort on your part. So how do we actually set up a moss pole? It's super easy, I promise. Here's what you'll need: a moss pole, some plant ties, and a spray bottle. First, pop the pole into the soil close to the main stem of your Monstera. Gently tie the stem to the pole with your plant ties. Just make sure not to pull too tight, as we want to avoid damaging the plant. Then mist the pole so it stays nice and moist. That's it. You've just given your Monstera a perfect climbing partner. Here are a few tips to keep that moss pole in top shape. Mist it a few times a week to keep it moist, especially in drier climates or in winter months. Also, make sure your Monstera is getting bright indirect light, which will help it grow quickly. And don't forget regular watering and occasional fertilizer to keep the plant happy and growing strong. With these little steps, your Monstera will thank you with lush, gorgeous growth. Next, what I want to get into is an actual live demonstration of how to put your plant on a moss pole. I have a couple plants laying around that I've been meaning to throw on a pole, so let's do that together. So let me, a little show and tell with the plants that I have here. This is a Monstera adansonii variegated. It's doing okay. I've been air layering it, so I think it's ready for a little bit of a chop and prop. The next one is this Monstera lechleriana variegated. It's just drying out a little bit too fast, so I think it needs a repot anyway. And the aerial roots are starting to come out and attach to the trellis that it's on, so I'm excited to get these things on their own moss poles. And yeah, as you probably picked up by now, it's gonna encourage vertical growth and get those leaves nice and big. Let's just kind of go for it. Let's go ahead and get this guy out of the pot that it's in. Pretty nice root system here. I have a container here that will perfectly fit all of that root system in there, so there's actually no need to chop really, which I'm pretty happy about, because being able to keep this intact will just really speed up the recovery process and help this thing grow big leaves faster. I'm gonna go ahead and just prune away some of these older, not very pretty leaves, and I'm also checking for pests on the back of the leaves. I've had an adansonii in the past that got a really bad spider mite infestation, and any plants that have thinner leaves are really gonna just invite pests to hop aboard. So I'm keeping an eye out for that. And for the root system, looking out for any black or mushy roots, but these are looking pretty good as well. I prefer to use the pre-made moss poles. It's just a little bit more convenient. I got these ones from Amazon, so if you want to check these ones out, be sure to check out the links in the description. These ones come with kind of like this protective film. You're gonna wanna go ahead and just peel that off. This one also comes with kind of the logo and an arrow down here. You're gonna wanna make sure that's gonna be pointed down. Another thing I like about these moss poles is the ability to change the thickness of the moss pole itself. So you can see here, there's these slots here that will allow you to either have a really thick moss pole or really thin. And the reason that I like that is because I can now have a little bit more control over how it's gonna fit into the container that I put it in. Here's an example. You could have it really thin like this, Or if you want to adjust it, you could have it a bit thicker, fit some more moss in there. For these smaller plants that I'm using today, I'd prefer it on close to the thinnest one. Its root system isn't that big, the roots don't get super thick, and it'll just fit in the container a little bit easier. Here is the moss pole, nice pre-built. We're gonna go ahead and pop that into the container. I've added some drainage holes just kind of to half of it. That's where the moss pole is going to go in. Because the plant's root system is so long and lanky, I don't want it to pop out of the container right away. It'll have a little bit of a better chance to kind of fill out the pot. One more root check, looking nice and healthy. Now this is gonna go into the container here, just like that. I've got my chunky soil mix here that I use for most of my plants. If you're interested in creating your own soil recipes, I made a free PDF guide for you to check out. Check out the notes in the description. Now we just have to fill this container with the soil, get it settled in. I also like adding the chunky soil into the pot from above as well. A little bit of a progress update for you guys. Container is full of soil. That's looking pretty good. Again, drainage only on half of the container, so that way the roots that are already touching the bottom can work their way around without coming out. We're gonna do kind of the same thing with this Monstera Moss. It's pretty root bound. It's drying out really fast. Time to swap out the soil. The root system on the Monstera Moss. You can see it's looking nice, root bound, healthy, not too bad anyway. Again, I'm just gonna go ahead and remove any black or mushy roots. It's looking pretty healthy for the most part. Moss pole number 2. Got some more of my chunky soil mix here. So the plant was in a 3-inch container. I'm moving it into a 5-inch. I think that'll do just fine with the moss pole. By the way, if I didn't already mention, there's 2 sides of the plant. The back of the plant is gonna be where the roots are coming out of. The front of the plant is gonna be where there's no roots. So obviously we're gonna put the side with the roots up against the moss pole. Here's what the other plant looks like. I have it in this more of a flexible plastic container, and what I like about this container is that I'm really able to just kind of maneuver both the moss pole and the plant to get the perfect fit. I've got my moss here for the moss pole, and I like to mix in some cocoa chips and perlite personally. The perlite helps add a little bit of air pockets in there, helps the water drain a little bit more properly. Same thing with the cocoa chips. And overall, I feel like it just helps to later propagate and remove some of the moss. It's a personal preference. You could totally use just plain long fibered sphagnum moss, but this is what I like to do. I'm gonna go ahead, put this in the pole, just kind of give it a shove down, and I'll show you what that looks like. So you've got your mix here, and I feel like it kind of helps to just kind of grab golf ball sized clumps each time and then get that in there. In this case, I'm using a sewing needle to just kind of press it down. You don't want to press too hard because then it becomes compact and it's a little bit harder to keep it hydrated. So just lightly pressing it down. At the time of this recording, I don't want to fill it up all the way because there's really no point. The plant isn't all that tall. So I just fill it up to the maximum height of the plant. And I feel like that's going to help maintain proper hydration to the moss pole. It'll dry out a little bit slower. And yeah, I just like the way that it looks. So here is the final result. You can kind of get a better idea of what I like to do, how I like to use my moss poles. Thanks for joining me to learn all about moss poles for your Monsteras. If you're excited to try this with your plants, let me know in the comments down below. Feel free to show some love by hitting that like button, dropping a comment below, or subscribing to the channel. It actually helps a ton, and it encourages me to create more videos like the one that you're watching now. And before you click away from this video, I just want to let you know about my free DIY soil guide. It's a PDF guide with a bunch of different soil recipes for Monsteras, philodendron, succulents, cacti, almost any kind of houseplant that you could think of. If that sounds like something you'd be interested in, be sure to check out the notes below. I'll see you in the next one.